Welcome back to the corner. We'll have your traffic for you on the hour, and let's just let the music roll for this one. Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. I read this one because I was doing research on a book I'm writing, and part of it takes place in the 1960s. And this was an influential sci-fi book back then. The original version was published in 1961. I read the full version that was published in, I think, 99. There was hundreds of pages cut. From what I've heard, a lot of it was stuff that was things that made the government look bad. I think that's a lot of what was cut. This is a very interesting novel. I'll see if I can give this review without giving any spoilers. Keeping the spaceship in a safe quadrant of the galaxy. It's about a man from Mars who is human. He's like a human that was raised by Martians on Mars. It takes place in 1980, viewed from 1961. And some of the chapters start out with a cool technique that I don't know if this is the first time it was done. A lot of the chapters start with a news report of things that are happening on a future day in 1980. It's kind of humorous. He paints his view of 1980 from 1960. So basic premise is this man who was raised by Martians comes back to Earth, and the military's trying to get him, and a group of cool people are trying to protect him from that exploitation. That's a good premise. The alien's name is Valentine Michael. In my opinion, the book's main character is this guy, Jubal Harshaw, who is taking care of Michael. He's in his 70s. He's a retired writer of newspapers and other media stuff that goes out. I think he used to be a lawyer, and he lives in this nice house with his 3 secretaries that are all attractive young women. But he doesn't sketch on them. He is actually very cool to them, and they like him, and there appears to be no hanky-panky. He seems like a very cool, world-savvy dude that would just rather live without people bothering him, and just having his pretty young women around him to do the transcribing of the stuff he narrates that they write down. The stuff that he writes is kind of just public opinion programming for the newspaper, I think. They're little stories, and he's very jaded about his own work and everything in general. I think he's the main character of the novel, and there is an arc with Michael that he goes through, and as he adjusts to planet Earth, and then planet Earth adjusts to him. It's a pretty good storyline. More time is spent actually on the old Southern writer's storyline, and that's not bad because he's a good character. Even though he's wicked sarcastic and jaded and cynical, he also has a strong sense of honor and right and wrong. He's also very, very intelligent. When the alien comes into his care, he's able to recognize what this is going to mean in the world, and he's able to use his brilliant knowledge of the legal system and the political system to basically broker a condition through all the powerful men he knows, by which this Valentine Michael guy can live some kind of life that's self-determined. When you see him actually bring all his resources of intellect to bear on very powerful people of high standing in order to try to begin this negotiation for what will happen to Michael. It was great. It's I didn't know if this guy was going to be on our side or not, but he is. This isn't the copy I read. I found this cool copy at Greg's bookstore in Orleans, Massachusetts. One of my favorite bookstores. This edition is the 32nd printing, March 1968. That's a lot of copies, 32nd printing. Like I said, I read this book as research for a thing I'm writing that takes place in the 60s. And I can see a lot of the reasons why this book was influential, and also why it was popular. I think the main appeal of this book to readers back then, or at least the thing that might have made it popular was it introduces several different sort of free love, cultish living situations in like the not too distant future from the 60s. So sort of in, communities that you could see that kind of thing working. Basically, there's 3 cults in this book. The first is Jubal Harshaw, the writer's cult, which is basically just him and his 3 hot typists. One's on front and the other 2 are lounging at the pool. And he also has like some other guys under his employ. There's a gardener and there might be one other guy. And you get to know this little living situation pretty well because it's like most of the novel is set there basically. It's kind of a little family. I think this living situation by the author is meant to be like the one that works because it's small and it's based on respect and one guy has a lot of money and the only reason why that situation works is because that guy is actually really cool. Which brought up another thought I've been thinking, which is just like with so much debate about kinds of government. I think that if the people were cool, and by people I mean both the people in the population and the people in the government, if the people were in a cool place, then any kind of government would work. And the opposite true too, that like if the people aren't right, the people making up the population and the government, if they're not right, no kind of government is going to work. Like you think of the worst kind of government you could think of, like a single fucking tyrant, right? If that was like the coolest guy in the world, you'd have a peaceful kingdom, like the fairy tale ideal of old. And people would jump back to the thought it's in human nature because power corrupts. But that's just a thought that no one's bothered to pick apart. It's like, why does power corrupt? In today's everybody yelling at each other phase, if people could realize that like the debate over what kind of government is best is just kind of like a distraction over why don't any kind of governments work? Why isn't anything working? Why isn't religion working? Why did the internet come and instead of the greatest ideas of man reach everyone and transform everyone? Why did instead like just the worst porn center everything else around it like a black hole? And that's basically the state of modern discourse. If you like those kind of dark thoughts, check out my upcoming novel, Dogs of Ruin, available January 1st. ToddAddingtonSci-Fi.com. Anyway, back to a book that was in its 32nd printing 4 years after being released. Anyway, the thing that makes that first cult of the novel work is that the central figure has a moral backbone. And from a manifestor's point of view, he also seems to have the ability to have created his best life. He kind of gets the work from people, which is exactly what he wants, and he makes it very worth their while. And they all grok him. Grok is a word that came from this book. And I'm pretty sure it just means to understand something or someone deeply. There's a lot of pages devoted to like the legal wrangling between Jubal and the various generals that he's trying to broker a deal with. I have a feeling a lot of this may have been from the stuff that was cut from the original version. And I think this is a bit of satire here, a la Dr. Strangelove, showing the most powerful men of Earth going through this just like moronic bureaucracy with each other in order to deal with an element of purity in the world. Michael's Mars culture is really interesting, but that's again something that I feel is not explored deeply enough. It's definitely a more connected culture where people are more connected with each other by far, which is good. That's a good message for people of Earth in that day and in this day. And he's got some pretty amazing telekinetic, I won't give too much of that stuff away, but the second cult that appears in the book sucks. It's basically a religious cult that looks very much like the huge televised churches that they had in the 1980s. So maybe that was a pretty good prediction because I'm not sure those big, massive televised churches were around in 61. I bet the prototypes were. I'm gonna look into that. And not a lot of time is spent with that cult, but it's pretty much how you picture. They have the big get-togethers where they try to get new people, and then like you get into the inner circle and it's weird sex stuff. It's not like sacrifices and stuff, but it's basically just like a lot of swingers, cult style. And the behavior of the cultists in this book, I think that became kind of like the behavior of cultists in the 60s. Just sort of like the way they talk with like new age hippie lingo. I'm not sure there was too many people talking that way at the time this book came out, which is why I think this might be a very influential book. Like even if he didn't make up that style of talking, maybe he read it or saw it in some location and then spread it with this novel. But sort of like the gross, soulless way that like people are like degrading themselves and talking about their spiritual journey. I think a lot of it might have come from this book, which brings up an issue that I've been thinking about, which is like, how much do writers make bad world conditions happen by their stories that we call predictive? Like a writer who's just trying to give a warning about the future of what could happen based on the tea leaves that he's reading now. What if that warning winds up, inciting that thing in the minds of men? That's a valid question to me, because like to me, writing about dark materials is kind of like my shadow work. It's like sometimes I need to talk about the worst things in the world so that I'm not running away from it. And sometimes in fiction, you can confront something that like you don't even know how to confront head on in the world. Problems of the collective subconscious. I don't know. It's possible that this little novel might have been very powerful indeed. All right, I'm going to talk about the third cult in this novel, but this is going to have a little bit of spoilers. So if you don't want anything spoiled, then don't listen. The third cult is the one that Valentine Michael starts. I like the fact that he's become a little bit embittered by seeing the state of humanity. And he sort of bases his cult on the gross religious one, the second cult. He tries to make it a lot better than that one, but you can see ways in which it's like just as bad. I like that it doesn't have a simple explanation about why it doesn't go right. It's not just like, he was perfect, but the world wasn't ready for him. And it's not just like he was corrupted, which is the necessary reality of anyone who's human. There's no easy explanation, which I appreciate. It just has these characters, and I won't give away the ending, but definitely worth a read. Look at the time. Time for me to hit the dusty trail. Thank you very much for listening to the channel. I got the new Black Company book, and I'll have my review up for that in just a few days. So keep your deep space beacon tuned to the frequency where first you caught sci-fi. Readers and Writers Corner.